曾经那么辉煌。
大家好，欢迎来到陶西川景德镇国际工作室举办的线上讲座，我是大家的主持人及翻译于静。陶西川国际教育目前上线了一系列国际大师班视频课程，还将邀请国内外艺术家定期举办艺术讲座，请大家持续关注。大家听得清我说话吗？清楚的话，请在公屏上扣1，因为线上讲座使用的是跨国网络，所以可能会出现信号不稳定的情况，请大家见谅。讲座过程中如果有任何问题，也可以打在评论区里，我们的工作人员会为大家一一解答。一切正常的话，我们的讲座就正式开始了。今晚参与讲座分享的艺术家是美国亚利桑那州立大学陶艺系教授 Susan Beiner。今晚讲座的主题是邻里自然。讲座中 Susan 将介绍她的陶瓷装置艺术作品，分享她的创作理论和灵感来源，以及她对人与自然关系的独特思考。Welcome to the online lecture held by Taoxichuan Art Center. Today we are very honored to have invited Susan Beiner, Professor of Art Ceramics, Arizona State University, as our lecturer. The title of today's lecture is Next to Nature. Now let's welcome Professor Susan Beiner to have her speech.
Hi everyone, this is Susan Beiner. I'm a ceramic artist and professor at Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona in the United States. So I'm going to share my screen and start the lecture.
大家好，我是 Susan Beiner， 是一名来自美国的陶艺家。目前我是美国亚利桑那州立大学的陶艺教授。
So my work begins with wonder and curiosity. I look for ideas in nature, including shapes and patterns, and I use them to reconfigure the design and art of the artwork, creating sort of a commentary about environmental issues.
好奇心与惊叹酝酿了我的创作。我在自然界中寻找灵感，包括形状和图案。我把它们设计重组，运用在作品当中，以表达我对环境议题的观点。
This is Synthetic Reality. It was one of my largest installations commenting on the bioengineering and hybridization of crops, making what is organic synthetic and what is synthetic organic. Today, most everything is manufactured of artificial materials. So this extends to what was once all natural, which led me to use sort of oil-based materials of foam and plastic.
合成现实是我最大的装置艺术作品之一，这是我对生物工程和作物杂交的看法。作品展现了有机合成与合成有机物之间的区别。在我们当下的生活几乎离不开人造材料，虽然这些人造材料取自于大自然，但是最终却变成我们所使用的泡沫、塑料之类的有机材料。
My use of excess has evolved similar to issues of urban sprawl, surrounded by a manufactured and engineered environment. This is over 200 sections and it hangs on 6 running cleats, which is the length of the entire wall.
我以过度开发为主题的创作，包含了对城市扩张的讨论。城市被制造业和工业环境所包围。在这件作品当中有超过200个组成部件， 它们被固定在6个长条的甲板上，整个作品的规模有墙那么长。
This is a side view, so you can see density and a close detail of one of the panels showing the synthetic blooms made of foam and polyfill.
从测试图里面可以看到作品排布的密度以及它们的局部细节。图上展示的是由泡沫和聚酯纤维制成的人造花朵。
And this is a fisheye view of 2 sides of the wall, so it feels like you're swimming in the space, through the space.
这2张照片是用鱼眼镜头拍摄的，你会感觉到正在潜泳穿过这片空间。
So these are references. They're things that I find on the internet as well as when I travel. I have a large collection of images as sort of a library of ideas and visual associations, and this is just one of the images.
我的灵感来源于旅行和网络上的见闻。我一直在收集图片，储备灵感来源，并且建立视觉资料库。这张图就是我从网络上搜集到的。
This is an image I took in Ireland. It's a huge wall of intense green moss, a beautiful texture and color.
我在爱尔兰拍下这张照片，这是一墙厚厚的苔藓，它们的质地和颜色都很漂亮。
On a trip to Airmont School of Arts and Crafts for a workshop in Gatlin, Tennessee, these I thought were bizarre. I thought they looked like a fist with a middle finger sticking up.
这是我在 Airmont 工艺美术学院参加在田纳西州加特林堡的研讨会时所看到的植物，它们的形态看起来很奇怪，看起来就像是在比中指。
These are the synthetic stems, which were clusters of stem growth. They were growing out of acrylic dome shapes on the ground, representing an artificial controlled environment. I also created large drawings while I was in the space. And so this entire project took 2 years.
这些人造有机物的茎干成簇的生长，它们从地上的亚克力半球中生长出来，代表它们是由人工培育。我特地为展览空间创作了巨幅的绘画，整个项目为期2年的时间。
This is another exhibition created over a period of a few years, and it developed as I exhibited it in 2 different spaces. It's a series of graphite drawings as well as ceramic pieces.
作品随着我在不同空间的展示而不断的发展。几年之后，我又举办了另一个展览。这个展览中囊括了我的铅笔画和陶瓷作品。
We negatively impact the environment by deleting Earth's natural resources. Plant structures are adapting their energy and being released, which causes sterility. We're controlling the growth and characteristics of plant life by promoting hybrids and germinating new plant species in laboratory-controlled environments. The results of these experiments in these environments, which are reproduced repeatedly for our own commercial needs, create a flora rich in color but artificial and sterile. So plants' loss of pigment foreshadows the future disruption of our ecosystem.
我们消耗着地球的自然资源，并且对环境造成了负面的影响。植物在适应环境的过程中，结构逐渐发生改变，最终导致它们失去繁殖的能力。我们在实验室中研究作物的杂交，培育出新的物种，从而控制植物的生长以及它们的特性。我们为了商业需求，批量的复制与生产。这些在人工环境里的实验所造成的结果是，这些植物变得逐渐失去色彩，而且脆弱不育。
This is a closer view of the density of the space. There are several mound-like shapes in the space where the growth starts to project upward with the goal of climbing up those trellis forms. However, it doesn't, and it becomes sort of stunted growth. And the multitude of the white blooms are made of foam and thread, providing density of the artificial and dead flora.
让我们来近距离观察这件作品。这些植物挨挨挤挤，锯成小丘的形状分布在展览空间当中。植物们向上生长，努力爬上阁架，但是并没有成功，而且发育相当迟缓。大量白色的花朵由泡沫制成，缠绕在上面的丝线增加了视觉上繁密的感觉。它们构成人造而且毫无生机的植物群落。
These images were used as references for some of the structure and research for this project.
这件作品的衍生参考了图中的植物结构。
This is a close view of some of the forms. This is one of the smaller mound pieces, which consists of 8 sections that fit together to create the mound of this encrusted form. And so the room becomes sort of a whitescape devoid of color beyond a few bits of and a hint of what it had existed before.
近距离观察这些形态，这个只是整个装置中其中一座小丘，而且是规模较小的一座。它共由8个部分拼合而成，整个空间以白色为主，只有零星的颜色作为点缀，也暗示着生命力的消逝。
And this is a closer detail of the ceramic forms and the foam and thread of the little blooms, the sterile blooms.
这张细节图上展示了由陶瓷和泡沫制成的，并且被丝线缠绕着的不育的花朵。
So this is another piece. I continued this idea of sterility in plant life with this piece. Instead of drawing on paper, I used graphite on clay as a way to create a shadow of decay where the blooms were growing out of the top to collect this decay. There are hints of green, blues, and lavender colors representing the connection to what had existed that had faded to become sterile. The stems collected in the vessels on the floor are the resulting chosen flora that are brought inside a living space as a reminder. A massive thread like hangs down from the piece, adding an element of time, memory, and encompassing more of the surface.
我就这件作品当中植物不育的概念进行延伸。铅笔通常是与纸张搭配使用，但我直接在陶瓷上用铅笔描绘出阴影，以表达腐烂与衰败。作品顶部长出的花朵呈现出衰败的迹象，淡淡的绿色以及柔和的薰衣草紫则暗示着原本状态的消逝，逐渐失去植物繁殖的能力。地板上的容器中是被选育的植物，它们被带进这个空间中，作为一种警示。大量的花朵垂下的丝线就像是藤蔓一样，展现出时间的变迁。
This is the research for my most recent piece, which I'm going to show you next. I'd been interested in creating a carpet and had done some research on ancient carpets or floor rugs from Europe and Persia, as well as some other areas in the Mediterranean, to understand not only how they were made, but what their symbolic significance was in the imagery of the tapestry. So this is an example of a, quote unquote rug as an event in a city built out of common flour in Brussels, Belgium. This woven tapestry is 70 by 24 meters.
接下来向大家展示的是我为最近作品展开的系列研究。我对地毯的制作一直很感兴趣，并且对欧洲、波斯以及地中海其他地区古代的地毯进行了一些研究。 我不仅了解到它们的制作过程，而且了解了挂毯装饰当中的象征意义。这是用地毯元素进行创作的一个例子。在比利时布鲁塞尔用花卉装点城市的一项活动当中，创作者用花卉编织了这幅长达70米、宽约24米的巨幅挂毯。
So this is the actual piece. I began working on Bounded Fragility, which is the title, after COVID began. I was on sabbatical and my research travel was all canceled. I thought it was a good opportunity to work on a large format installation piece. So I began making maquettes, prototypes, and molds, and testing glazes. I had been thinking about using glaze as a unifying element for all the parts. So the glaze that was chosen would need to be more of a satin opaque with a hint of something else as a spark of light. So this ceramic piece is a warning of the fragility of our planet. The surface layers are flora and fauna, which is the most common motif in rugs from ancient cultures. As a visual extension of the piece, the corners convey the stitching of the rug, and this establishes the relationship of the pattern to the multitude of stitches that is comprised of and bound by this history of craft.
接下来的这件作品则是我受到地毯的启发进行创作。在疫情期间，我开始作品脆弱之境的研究。那时我正在休假，但是我研究旅行的计划全部被取消了。我这个时候觉得是一个开始大型装置创作的好机会，于是开始制作模具，并且测试釉料。我一直想用釉料结合给多样的形态做个统一，因此我倾向于选择覆盖力更强的不透明釉，并增添一些其他的元素作为点睛之笔。这件陶瓷作品是对地球脆弱性的警示，作品表面是动植物的生命形态，也是古代文化当中地毯最常见的装饰主题之一。这件作品的视觉延伸部分，也就是作品边缘所呈现出的是地毯的针脚，这也就确立了众多图案与针脚之间的关系。这种编织工艺既是古老的技艺，也同时受到历史工艺的约束。
The central focus is the artichoke, which represents hope for a prosperous future. As a food, flower, and medicinal plant, the artichoke's edible heart is protected by strong layers and is one of the oldest known foods dating back to ancient times in the Mediterranean region. The patterning throughout the piece displays the artichoke in variations of its flowering, creating a dense wildflower pattern. 4 birds flank the perimeters of the center as guardians protecting the future. The color is saturated and rich, symbolic of power, while the gold luster reflects the sun's power. The golden thistle is a 3D printed bloom which reaches in an upward trajectory as a representation of our growing technology.
作品的中央是阳季，表达了对美好未来的展望。阳季作为一种可观赏且具有食用和药用价值的植物，它可食用部分则被坚硬的外皮所包裹。它是地中海地区已知的最古老的食物之一。整件作品展现出千姿百态的正在开花的阳季，营造出繁密的花朵图案。有4只鸟作为守护者在外围，象征着守护未来。这件作品色彩饱和而丰富，象征着力量，而金色的光泽则反映出太阳的能量。中央的阳季是由 3D 打印技术制成的，它高高的被举起，象征着我们不断发展的科技。
I raise concerns about our fragile ecosystem of humans, animals, and plants. We're surrounded by a real and growing threat, the threat of humanity's effect on our life-giving ecosystems. This affects every human being, but with awareness, we can all play a part. to better protect our Earth and create an ecological balance between our connection to nature.
我担心我们人类动植物的脆弱生态系统的终局。我们被一个非常现实而且正在不断增长着的威胁所包围，这就是人类对我们赖以生存的生态系统所造成的影响。这会影响到我们每一个人，但是只要有意识，我们都可以发挥自己的力量，更好地保护我们的地球，并且在我们与自然的联系之间建立起生态的平衡。
This is just an image of a slip casting mold for the 3D printed piece representing the technology, but also the thistle of the artichoke. The top section is cut off and the window pieces are cut out, just as an example.
中央的阳气部分借用了科技的力量，通过 3D 打印翻模后注浆成型。为了展现阳气外表坚硬的叶片，我对简单的 3D 打印形态进行了处理，切掉它的顶部，并且把它的窗格裁开进行形态加工。
And this is a close-up of variations of the floriforms and the lustered 3D printed thistle form.
这是阳气和其他形态经过处理的植物部件的特写。
So this is another piece, Nature in Cells. The content is from a grant I had received from ASU's biodesign area to work with cancer scientists in designing a piece about cancer. Nature in Cells is about the body and how cancer cells slowly replicate and make its way through and overcome the healthy cells. It's created in a circular format to represent a cyclical nature and movement.
这件作品叫做《细胞中的自然界》，我获得了亚利桑那州立大学生物设计领域的资助，通过与研究癌症的科学家合作，设计了一件关于癌症的作品。在这件作品当中，展现了癌细胞是如何在身体中缓慢复制，逐渐渗透，并且杀死健康细胞的。作品最终呈现的形式是一个圆，是为了表达生命的周期性以及物质的运动。
The darker clay body represents the cancerous cells and how they begin invading the other forms. I devised a palette that had sensibility of internal organs, but referenced some plant materials in nature since cancer affects humans, animals, and plants. This piece is permanently installed on ASU's campus.
深色的粘土代表癌细胞，以及它们是怎样开始入侵其他的组织。我设计了一套色板，用来暗示人体内的器官，但是也同时以自然界的植物作为参考，因为癌症同时会影响到人和动物与植物。这件作品被亚利桑那州立大学永久收藏。
And this is the diagram drawing for the steel mounting sections of the Nature in Cells piece. And that's my cat, Pax, who hangs out in the studio with me. The mounts are all in sections and are powder-coated steel.
这是细胞中的自然界这件作品的安装示意图。我的猫 Pax 经常会到我的工作室来闲逛。这件作品的所有组件都分为部分，安装在涂层的钢板上。
This is one of the molds used for the project. However, in this case, I use the piece for its internal form, not external.
这是完成这件作品所使用的其中一个模具。在这种情况下，我利用了它的内部空间，而不是外部。
So this is the same form, but a variation of the section. Again, I cut off the top and use the internal space.
这基本是一个类似的形态，但是发生了细微的变化，就像我前面提过的步骤，从顶部切开，通过内部进行塑形。
This piece portrays the chrysanthemum flower from Chinese history as a symbol of vitality. Variations of white clay bodies and glazes on a white powder-coated steel mount.
这件作品取材于菊花，在中国历史上，菊花有生命力顽强的象征意义。这件作品创作基于类似的模具，但是形态是富有变化的。底座的钢板选择了和坯体近似的白色，以达到视觉上的统一。
Encrusted floral decoration translated from a Chinese historical porcelain china painted vessel into three-dimensional. The flat clusters towards the center are supposed to relate to butterfly wings.
这件花卉作品来源于我将中国古代彩绘瓷器中平面图案转化为立体形态，中间的一丛模拟了蝴蝶振翅欲飞的动态。
As a continuation, I began to create some smaller pieces as sketches. In this way, for me, to get a sense of what I wanted to achieve with surface and designing the forms for the larger pieces. In this piece, I was trying to achieve sedimentary layering, so you can see the concrete in between two different sets of forms, thinking about layering and unifying surface with glaze.
后来我开始创作小型的作品，作为大型作品的草模。这样的方式让我对大型作品的表面效果和形态设计更有把握。在这件作品中，我尝试中间做个分层，因此可以看到上下两组形态之间的粘土层。这件作品在形态上进行区分的同时，也是同样以釉料作为它们之间的统一。
Additionally, I did a series of cup sketches, thinking about the parts of a cup in developing a sculptural form.
此外，我还做了一系列的杯子实验，思考如何利用杯子来制作雕塑。
And this is a green sketch, assembling forms to create kind of a still life effect.
在这件作品当中，我组合各个形态，营造出静物的效果。
These are some porcelain pieces that I used for references of the chrysanthemum. These are 15th century pieces which began the appearance of the chrysanthemum as a symbol of vitality in Chinese history.
菊这件作品的创作，我参考了古代的瓷器。这些来自15世纪的作品当中，菊花被认为是生机与活力的象征。
Another piece where the circle on the inside of the form represents a kind of window for the viewer to look into.
这件作品的图案设计上有开光的设计，对观众来说就像是通过一个窗口向外看去。
This is another piece called Limelight. I continued the exploration of the chrysanthemum with a series of larger wall pieces. This piece portrays them in a cascading field of poppies. The piece is 9 sections wall-mounted on the wall. Yeah.
我继续探索作品菊系列，并且衍生出大型的壁挂装置。这件作品描绘的是一大片罂粟田，一共分为9个部分，挂在墙上。
And this is the reference for it. It's a field of poppies. I stylized the poppy flower form.
这片罂粟花田是我的灵感来源，并且我提取了罂粟花的形态进行创作。
I devised a system to hang all the sections on 3 cleats that run the length of the piece, which makes it much easier to hang. All sections slide to the center.
我给作品设计了一个悬挂装置，也就是这3个夹板。夹板和作品是等长的，这样更便于安装。它的受力点主要集中在中间的部分。
This shows how the piece is made. Each part is encrusted while situated against the next, so the bending of the parts fit once it's fired. I build from the center section out and try to keep all the sections wet while working so all the parts dry slowly together.
图上展示了我作品的制作过程，它们每个部分都紧密相邻，因此烧制后不同的部分它们拼接处就会相互吻合。通常我从作品的中间部分开始制作，并且尽可能保持所有部分的湿度是一致的，最后整体再进行干燥。
I look at arrangements of European gardens to think about forms and shapes and how they relate to one another.
同时，我参考了欧洲花园的布局来设计作品的形式以及形态，让作品各个部分相互呼应。
This is Contained Chrysanthemum. It's a 21-section piece based on the geometry of flowers, divisible by 4 pieces and a center. I was researching the symmetry in architectural tile.
我研究了建筑花砖的对称结构。含苞待放这件作品基于花朵的几何形态进行设计，它共分为21个部分，围绕着中心大致分为4个层次。
This shows the fluidity of the glaze melt.
图上可以近距离观察到釉料的流动性。
And this is Everlasting Revolution. It's the same format of the last piece with variations on the surface.
永恒的革新这件作品也用到了相似的构成，但形态不同。
This is the inside of my home studio. In the front space, I usually draw and use the wall for hanging works and photographing. The back space closest in the photograph is where I work in clay and plaster.
这是我家的工作空间。这个家庭工作室前面用来画手稿，墙面可以悬挂作品以及拍摄。空间的后半部分，也就是照片上的近景，我通常在这里进行翻模以及作品的制作。
This is a toilet and a sink I made at a residency at the Kohler Arts Industry Program, and they are installed in my studio bathroom.
这2件作品是我在科勒艺术中心驻场期间完成的，目前安装在我工作室的浴室里。
This piece is entitled Non-Biodegradable, and it's generated from our society's abusive pattern of overproduction and waste. The concentration of debris sits afloat in our oceans, being bleached by the sun. Surprisingly, a few floral forms emerge out of the pile, presenting the idea of hope.
这幅名为《不可降解》的作品来源于我们社会中过度生产且浪费的现象。这些垃圾聚集在一起，漂浮在海洋上，被阳光晒到褪色。但是令人惊讶的是，一些看起来像是花朵的形态从中冒出来，以表达出希望的概念。
So this piece is made up of several mounded porcelain sections that fit together on this tabletop surface. The various pieces of trash fill in any visible gaps. The dark acrylic layer represents water. There's a new sort of geological era of plastic coating our earth. Debris concentrations that are choking oceans, killing marine life, and soon microbes of plastic can be found in food production, reaching our human system.
这件作品几个部分互相叠加而组成，作品整体安装在桌面上。我用各种废弃物填满了它们之间所有的间隙。作品表面的深色丙烯涂料则代表着水。塑料包裹地球的新地质时代已经来临，垃圾浓度过高导致海水缺氧，海洋野生动物死亡。很快我们就会在食品生产当中发现塑料微粒，而且这将微粒最终将进入人体的循环系统。
Each piece of debris is labeled with the material and how long it will take to biodegrade.
在这件作品中，每个海洋垃圾都标有材料的名称以及它们生物降解所需要的时间。
So this is my next piece, Expanded Hive. This is in an installation entitled Expanded Hive, which is developed over a period of years. The idea behind this began after bees were discovered moving into a scrap pile of wood and drawer units on the side of my house after making renovations. The bees freely moved in and started building their hives in and around all these scrap configurations.
这件装置作品名为《扩张的蜂巢》，作品衍生经历了前后大约几年的时间，灵感来源于我家装修后搬来院子里的蜜蜂。这些蜜蜂自由地出入靠在房子旁边的废弃木材和旧家具的抽屉里，并且开始建造蜂巢。
I didn't want to kill the bees, so I called a honey farmer. The local bee farmer came, and after discovering we had over 40,000 bees, I suited up to experience this. I smoked the bees to relax them, and they were guided onto wooden frames so they could be moved to a local honey farm. They were clumped and clustered onto wooden panels while swarming around my head. After the bees had been taken away, I inspected the wax hives, collected all the honey, and gave it all to all my friends, and it was delicious.
我不想伤害这些蜜蜂，所以打电话给当地的蜂农。他们来了之后，发现这些蜜蜂有超过4万只。对我来说是很喜欢这样奇妙的体验。蜂农用烟熏出蜜蜂，再把它们引到木架上，以便转移到当地的蜜蜂农场。它们结成一团，聚集在木板上，同时也在我头顶上嗡嗡地飞。蜜蜂被带走之后，我从蜂巢里收集了很多的蜂蜜，和朋友们一起分享。这对我来说是很甜美的回忆。
This is a reference for how I wanted the ceramic pieces to appear like they were emerging out of a mount from the surface. This is from a trip to Israel where the fields were Jerusalem artichokes.
我那时正在思考如何让陶瓷作品像是从泥土里面直接绽放出来的。图上就是我的灵感来源。在去以色列的旅行途中，我发现了一片洋蓟田。
The hexagonal shape represents a naturally occurring structure as new growth began to consume over the space. Now, after the bees are long gone, each wall unit represents a cell grown over by nature after the bees have left the colony. I would collect samples of the plant growth, draw and model them out of clay before creating casting molds for this project.
每个六边形代表了一个自然生长的结构。生长是需要消耗空间的。在蜜蜂已经离开之后，墙面上每个单元代表了蜜蜂离开蜂群之后繁衍生息的状态。为了这个项目，我收集了各种植物样本，并且在翻模制作之前用粘土制作小稿。
Drawings mark the shift in landscape as each frame moves across the walls. By using drawings, I'm experimenting with expanding the dimension, creating relationship between 2-dimension and 3-dimensional form. Small ceramic pieces erupt in and around the drawn hexagons, bridging the gap between the two mediums.
墙上的线条起到视觉引导的作用，以达到参观过程中移步换景的效果。通过绘制设计图，我尝试扩大作品的维度，并且在2维和3维之间建立起联系。这些小的陶瓷组件分布在绘有图案的六边形周围，使不同的元素之间产生联系。
These are drawing panel details. There were 20 drawn panels total, all covered in beeswax as a sealant, which you could smell upon entering the room.
这是作品的细节图，它们一共大约有20块面板，所有的面板上都涂有蜂蜡，这样观众们一进到房间就可以闻到。
After 1 year of documenting the area, I think the bees influenced the changes of plant growth and flora in the area. I was surprised to see that it was a very different space of growth prior to the bees inhabiting the area. The natural environment transformed into a new landscape, implicating the importance of the ecosystem.
经过1年对该地区的记录，已经证实蜜蜂对该区域植物的生长和群落变化产生影响。我惊讶地发现，它们与蜜蜂到来之前的生长状态差异很大。在这些作品当中，自然环境转变为新的景观，目的在于暗示我们生态系统的重要性。
And this shows the plant, which is Queen Anne's lace on the right side, which is what influenced my decision for how I mounted the hive pieces. All the forms are contained within a space. However, it looks as if they are ready to sort of burst out. And so in this way, I built the widest part to be the top, and the bottom you can see glazed as part of the body molds.
图上右侧是野胡萝卜花，它的形态启发了扩张的蜂巢这件作品的装置形式。所有细小的枝条都向内卷起，看起来极富爆发力。就这样，我把它最张扬的形态放在作品的顶部，以及在底部你可以看到作品上右的部分。
And this is the last slide. This is another one of my cats, Pansy, who likes to pose with my ceramics pieces.
这是我另一只猫，它叫 Pansy， 它很喜欢与我的作品一起合影。
And that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. 现在进入观众提问环节。如果大家有问题想和艺术家交流的话，请将问题打在公屏上，我们将随机选取4到5个问题，请艺术家解答。好，现在请大家键入问题。
Nobody has a question?
And now we are waiting for them type the question. And most audiences might use their microphone, but no, but use their mobile phone. Sorry. 第一个问题来自明，非常喜欢你的作品，特别是从中国清代陶瓷作品中获得灵感，并且进行再创作的方式很鼓舞我。请问您会开课程传授这种创作方式吗？So the first question from Ming, he said he very like your works, especially these works. You inspired by the Qing Dynasty ceramic works, and he want to ask if you will have a class to teach this kind of this way to creation.
In the master class, I put together the master class, and some of it is in there.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what he means?
Yes. I think you might introduce your master class and that the audience know more.
I put together a master class for Taoxichuan, and it goes through all of the ways that I figure out what I'm going to make using a reference, and then how the work comes from the reference in building like a bigger project. And it goes through, I think, 6 series of classes.
Okay. 艺术家给出的回答是，他受到陶溪川国际教育平台的邀请，录制了一系列的国际大师班视频课程， 在这个课程当中，他对于他的创作过程、灵感来源以及大型装置作品的制作有非常详细的展示。这位观众所问到的利用清代陶瓷作品作为灵感来源，是他的创作方式之一。Okay, thank you.
To add to that, I'm also planning on coming to China again, probably in next year.
他的视频课程大约包含了6个部分，而且艺术家表示他有计划返回中国继续创作。第二个问题来自轩，请问你是怎么保持这么大的工作量的？ So the second question from Huan, she asked, how do you keep this such huge workload in creation?
Like how do I keep doing it? Or
yeah, and so many works.
I don't own them all anymore. I don't have them. Sometimes, I'm not sure exactly. The projects are a year to 2 years, and they change a little bit as I make them, but I make drawings that keep me engaged with the project, and then I show it. The bounded fragility piece, the yellow one, is now in the collection of the museum in Korea. So I don't have them. There are places in the world that own them now.
实际上我也不知道我是如何保持这么大量的创作的。通常我的作品会花1到2年的时间去创作一个项目，并且在创作过程中不断的进行衍生。在这个过程中，我会不断的绘制草图，用绘图的方式记录我的灵感。
Actually, some of the pieces that are at the, let's see, like the first piece and the last piece I showed, Synthetic Reality and Expanded Hive, were split into smaller sections so that people could purchase smaller sections, and that way after a while they're all gone.
同时
like I break it down into smaller pieces.
同时我在今晚演讲当中介绍的第一件作品以及最后一件作品，我把它们分为小部分的形式进行创作，最后组装在一起。而这些每一个陶瓷部件呢，都可以分开进行销售。当然一段时间之后，然后这件作品就卖得七七八八了。在讲座过程当中，我也详细的展示我是如何分步骤进行创作的。第3个问题来自宋佳莹，想问一下艺术家装置的悬挂系统是怎么设计的？So the third question from Song Jiaying, she want to ask, how do you design your hanging system for your installations?
The hanging system is just designed based on what the piece is going to be and how many parts it is. So I try to design the system to be as easy as possible for someone else to hang it, so that if I'm not there, then I can tell people and communicate how to hang it. So there's no There's no specific way. It's just based on how many parts, and really the easiest way to communicate for someone to hang it. And I think about it, I just think, what would that be?
Yeah, and also I think the audiences want to ask the clay on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
How do you design it?
Oh, you mean to hang on the wall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So all of the sections, all of the ceramic sections are mounted to something on the back. It used to be wood or steel, and it's mounted by, I imprint in the ceramic piece a hanger so that I can connect it with nuts, bolts, and glue to the back piece, to the steel or wood. Does that make sense?
So do you mean you are using the? I mean, yeah, I know, I got that. You mean in your the back of your walls, they are mounted, so they have the parts can hang in the wall, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay. 关于如何设计作品的悬挂系统，通常我会基于我的作品，它会制作成什么样的规模，我会把它们划分成几个部分，然后最后再进行组装。而且通常有的时候我不在展览现场，我也会让组装的过程，就考虑到组装，我会让它尽可能的简单，以便于工作人员操作。同时在我的作品背面，它是也就是陶瓷部分，我制作了一个隆起的部分，这样可以直接悬挂在墙上，也就不需要加上额外的金属或者是木质的部件，或者是用到胶之类的粘合剂。
Also, I have never had a piece fall off the wall, so it's good.
而且至今为止，我还没有作品会从墙上掉落下来，所以我设计的这个装置系统是足够稳固的。第4个问题来自 Super 大卷，如此多的装置艺术，不知是否有日用词的展示，不知道如何看待艺术设计与实用性结合的。So the fourth question from Super 大卷，I suppose he, so he asked, so many installation works, he wonders if you have the functional design of your ceramic works, and how do you treat what's your opinion towards the art and design with the functional?
Oh, I think I understand that. I think they're very similar in a way. I like to make functional objects as well, and but not with the same kind of concept as I do installation works. But I think you approach them the same way. I think when you are designing an object for function, that you still have to have a concept in your mind, or a reference in your mind for how you designed that object, whether it's functional or not. Yeah.
So, sorry, I lost the first sentence. So, do you have any? any functional designs?
Yeah, it's just you have to have this. It's made the same way so that the concept is in a functional design just as much as it is in an installation design. You approach it the same way, I think.
Yes, just one idea or concept in your mind and develop it, right?
Yeah, it's the same.
我认为，艺术设计与实用性的创作，他们创作的方式是类似的，因为同样都是以不同的目的以及不同的创作概念在脑中，然后逐渐的衍生，会经历类似的创作过程，比如前期的草模，以及到后期的作品实现。最后一个问题来自橡皮擦，我叫赵笑笑，是首饰设计专业四年级的学生，请问您在设计中怎样把自己的生活、自己所属的地域文化等因素融入进去，使设计具有明显的不同地域的审美？So the last question from 橡皮擦 means eraser, and she said, "My name is Zhao Xiaoxiao, and my major is jewelry design." And she is fourth year in university. She want to ask, how do you combine your life and your culture with your design, to make your design with different aesthetic with your with your style and with in your area.
So I have always been interested in historical porcelain from Europe and Asia. And so I have studied that for many years. And I'm very interested in plants and growing, and I live that way at my house. I grow my food, some of it, not all of it. And
so cool.
I grow food, I have fruit trees, and I'm trying to have eventually a fully sustainable area of land, much like in China, but it's very different in the United States. We don't really do that here. So but I'm interested in that. And so I combine those two things in thinking about my work and designing my work.
一直以来我对于欧洲、亚洲古代的陶瓷都非常感兴趣，而且我对它们进行了多年的研究，并且在生活当中我很关心植物的生长，而且我也会自己种植蔬菜，可供食用的，以及在我的院子里面也种了果树。这样的话对我来说是实现了一种可持续的生活方式。虽然我知道在中国也有很多人会自己种植蔬菜水果，但是对于我所生活的文化环境当中，这并不常见。我认为我作品创作中体现的 所体现的都是源自于生活。
I just want to add something, like the shapes and forms that you use aesthetically in your artwork are usually related to who you are as a person, and that is usually the strongest work that you can make as an artist.
另外我认为你的作品所呈现出的形态与审美是非常直观的呈现出你是什么样的。作为艺术家而言是一种非常非常直观而且风格强烈的自我表达。今晚观众提问反响非常的热烈，所以我们在结尾再增加一个问题。最后一个问题则来自于哈哈，看得出来艺术家很喜欢自然元素，我很喜欢花艺，可以推荐一下有关自然或者是花的书籍或者作品集吗？ So the very last question
Sure.
From haha, she said she can find you very love these natural elements, and she also loves a flower. And do you have any recommend about nature or flower? There any book recommend or some portfolio you can share?
Not really, because I look at things when I travel, when I just look at things in the world. I keep my own folio, like my own collection of images, but it's not posted online. But there are sources of like websites that are, I don't know if you can access them though, because I don't know that, Jing, you'd have to let me know that. I can give you some sources of websites if she wants to access them. I just don't know that you could. They're very sort of local, in America. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything is my own collection.
Okay.
But wait, one more thing. She could just go to museums in China. There's tons of nature and floral imagery.
Yeah.
Because that's where I have been.
实际上这样类似的书籍推荐目前我是并没有的。我通常通过旅行以及观察生活的方式进行资料的积累与收集。当然我也会访问，通过互联网一些非常优秀的网站进行获取这些资讯。当然我不是很清楚你们是否能够访问这些非常可以说是小众而且是区域性的网站。但是我非常推荐在中国有非常多优秀的博物馆，同时你们可以去逛一逛，同时也是我获取资讯的其中一种方式。而且我在讲座内容当中提过的我的灵感主要来源于网络以及对生活的观察，还有在旅行途中的发现，而且是通过建立图片库的方式去收集这些。好的，由于时间关系，今晚的问答环节就到此结束了。非常感谢大家的参与，也非常感谢 Susan Beiner 为我们带来的精彩内容。12月8日晚8点，我们还将邀请德国艺术家 Christiana 分享她的创作经历。非常欢迎大家参与讲座。请大家持续关注陶溪川国际教育平台，我们邀请 Susan Beiner 录制的国际大师班线上视频课程花非花注浆成型与重复构成将陆续上线， 同时我们还将推出更多的线上课程与活动。Thank you, Professor, for your wonderful works and stories with us. And we are very impressed. Thanks everybody for your attention. Thanks for coming, and I hope you all enjoy our lecture today. On December 8th at 8 p.m., we will have another lecture held by German artist Christiana. Hope to see you there. So good night.
Good night. No, good morning. Thank you.